Welcome to Whose Views Reviews, and in this episode we're off back to 1985, and Philip Martin's script Vengeance on Varos warns us a couple of decades before of what reality television can really do, and a warning, there might be some very evil person joining us during this show. So here we are, joined by the WHOTASTIC panel. Hello, WHOTASTIC panel.
Hello.
How are we all? Everybody okay?
Not bad, how are you?
Thanks, yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us on this Vengeance on Varos review. Thank you to everybody that's watching us. Nice to see you all. We're going to bring him on straight away because I know he's dying to see you all. Please welcome to Whose Views Reviews for Vengeance on Varos, our very special guest. It's Mr. NABIL SHABAN.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello to you. And hello to your little friend there as well. I have to tell you, NABIL.
He on the show. He should not be on the show. Get him off.
I have to tell you, NABIL, my sister will be watching this. And back in 1985, she was absolutely terrified by that laugh.
What laugh?
Your laugh. Janine, if you're watching, I'm really sorry.
I don't know what laugh you're talking about.
It's his natural laugh there, isn't it? Absolutely. Listen, NABIL, you are very welcome to Whose Views Reviews. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, all right. Okay, can I go to bed now?
No, stay there. We've got some people here. Let's just say hello to Garbage. He's saying that you watched the show at the weekend. So glad to see you. We've also got Damien there saying hello to people. We've got John saying it's going to be a great show. And Garbage has already took that. He was terrified by Sil when he was younger. He thought that Sil was real.
I am real. You'll have nightmares now.
You've certainly built those. Yeah, we know. We have a feedback issue there. We know what that is. But no one is near NABIL to sort that out. So if you can bear with us, that would be brilliant. Because it's NABIL's fault.
Yay.
All right, so let's get on with this. It was first screened on the 19th and the 26th of January 1985 on BBC One. Written by award-winning writer Philip Martin. Script edited by Eric Saywood. Then it was directed by Ron Jones. And of course produced by John Nathan Turner. Story 3 for Colin. His start of his tenure, and the second in his first full series, season 22. Vengeance on Varos, guys. Wow! I mean, this was ahead of its time. This was if it was still today, this would be a thriller. NABIL, can you remember what it was like when you got this through?
What? Sorry?
Can you remember what it was like when you got this through for Vengeance on Varos?
Well, I had an audition, an interview. I went to see Ron Jones, and he gave me the script there and then to look at before, and then he asked me to read some of it out loud to him. But the thing was, as soon as I saw that it had been written by Philip Martin, I thought, I want to do this because I really loved his shows, Gangsters.
Yeah.
And so I thought anything written by him, I had to do. So it was a, it was a no loser really.
Mm-hmm.
So I quickly scanned the script and saw that Syl was supposed to have a weird, eerie laugh, and I thought, that's the key. That's the key to the part. If I can get the laugh right, I'm onto a winner. The character will win, and win the hearts and minds and souls of all aliens, especially. And that was it. So I read the piece that Ron asked me to read, and I did a very feeble, crappy laugh. And but I knew that I had some time to work on it if I get the part. And so he said to me, right, well, I'll put my cards on the table. I want you for the part. He offered it me there and then at the audition.
Wow.
And I went, oh, wow. He says, of course, you'll have to do some work on the laugh, but that's a minor detail. Because I think I just went, which was the only thing I could think of at that time during the audition. So that was it. I went away from the place happy as Larry even. And I couldn't believe it, really, because I've not been that well. I hadn't been that successful at auditions, so I was actually quite gobsmacked. And also, I very nearly didn't get there in the first place because I was driving on my way to the venue, and I got into trouble with the law.
Go on.
Well, I was doing an illegal turn. I wanted a shortcut and decided to turn right when actually it was illegal to go right at that particular moment. But I didn't want to have to go all the way forward, then turn around, go around Trafalgar Square, wave to Nelson and all that. So I thought, no, I want to cut all that out. And I decided, and I knew that if I turned right, it'd be fine. So, and the thing was, I argued about it with the cop. He was a motorcycle cop, and he kept telling me to keep moving ahead, and I kept saying, no, I want to go right. Move ahead. No, I want to go right. And he said, right, stay there. And I thought, oh shit, what have I done? And I've only got a few minutes left to go before the audition, the interview. And what am I doing? I'm just asking for trouble. So in the end, I said, okay, I will. And he let me go. And then as soon as he'd buggered off, I sort of turned around quickly and went up the way I wanted to go. So and I managed to get there in time, which was lucky because, well, I would never have got to play Syl.
Yeah. And then from there, a legend was born.
Can I
I'm so glad you did.
Yeah.
Me and JT saw your costume and mask recently. And when you went for the part and you read it and you thought, oh, I like this part, it's galactic gangster. A lot of actors, when they get a part in Doctor Who, they want to be seen by their family, their kids, and all the rest of it because, it's Doctor Who. When you saw the costume, did you go, oh, hold on a minute, where's me? Or did you think, oh, no, I can do a lot with the face? Were you pleased with the costume and how it worked?
Now, the thing is, when I was first phoned up about going to the audition, they reassured me that people would see my face, that I wouldn't be wearing a mask. And I thought, well, that's because I'm ugly enough, isn't it? That's why I hadn't given me a mask. So, so I knew, but it was very important that my face should be seen. I wasn't going to be a sort of Cyberman or a Dalek or Ice Warrior type villain. So that was okay. I that was not something I was worried about. And also Ron, he didn't like the when the suit arrived, and it only arrived just like a day or two before we were shooting. He was horrified to find that the head and body was one piece, so the head wouldn't go round. And so when we tried to act with the suit, it was terrible. And in the end, Ron said, "I'm sorry, we have to cut off his head. It has to move about." And so I watched as they sawed my head off. And then the next problem was, well, my head won't stay, or my face won't stay. And they needed to glue the head to my head. And they needed to put frills at the joints of the head and the body to hide, number one, the cut, and number two, to give him some frilly bits. So so they cut off the frills. That it's all like very amateurish in a way and impromptu. They cut the frills that were between my arm and my side of the body. So they were just hacked off and then glued to go around my neck to give me a frill. And that's it.
We've got a couple of pictures of you here, Nabil. Let's put these up so we can remind ourselves. We've got this one here.
Yeah, you see, you can see the frills around the head. That they were originally my armpits.
It's me. I mean, it's a great costume, though. I mean, when you appeared in 1985 in this show, we had never seen a villain quite like this before. And to have the ability to make him also quite humorous. Yeah, he had a very dark humor from a human point of view, did Sil.
Yeah.
You know, was that something you had? Go on.
Well, no, I was going to say that's down to Philip Martin, isn't it? You know, there's a lot of humor in his gangster series. It was quite dark in many ways, and he tried to keep up that humor with the subsequent Sil stories. So that's and I probably understood his humor, so I obviously tried to make it work. But I'm sure any actor could do that. I mean, there's nothing special about me. Any actor could play Sil if they're paid enough.
Go on, Paul.
I was going to ask Nabil, having seen the makeup and the costume, how long did it take to get ready before you had to start filming?
It was a 3-hour time in makeup, getting into the suit and getting the getting the makeup done. And surprisingly, it was only half an hour to get out. But I think part of the reason for that was I developed so much slime between me and the suit that I just, the suit just escaped. You know, it just slid off and it crawled down the road, down the path and so on. And he couldn't be caught again until the following week, screaming. That's the story.
Yeah, I've got socks on that.
Yeah, exactly.
When you hear actors from Doctor Who talking about when they are recording, then they go for their lunch, and there's jokes about Daleks left behind and all the rest of it. So, Nabil, in your situation, when people are going for lunch and you're in that costume and you're on that kind of plinth, that mobile plinth, you know, I mean, you're in such a situation, aren't you, regarding being in role, and then when you can actually relax.
Well, of course, there's always the danger that, you know, if I wasn't very good, or I'd upset my fellow actors or the floor manager or whatever, you know, I would be left behind on my plinth. So I made it a condition of my contract that I had a buddy with me, a minder, who was a mate, and he was basically personally responsible for making sure that you know, I got away, I got some lunch, I got you know, this one of my friends who was my minder in the studio. His job was to fan me, you know, because the suit was very hot and sweaty, and you know, he had a little electric hand fan. He was my only fan, in fact, at the time, and he would be sitting in front of me just off camera, you know, fanning me and keeping me cool. His other job was to give me as much fluid as I needed at the time. And then there was a bit later on, they decided that they would stab me. So I think the director came up with the idea, and he approached me with a, you know, sort of little knife, and started to stab the suit to provide, you know, for air holes to get to me. So yeah, it's just so dramatic. This Doctor Who, you know, I get my head cut off, having the frills cut off, being stabbed. You know, Colin Baker, he never has anything like that. And he's probably getting paid about 10 times more than me.
Actually, talking of Colin, Nabil, I want to just bring up at this moment. It's Colin that has, over the years, said that you mentioned the laugh, and the laugh is what Still is famous for, or part of what Still is famous for. And Colin often says in conventions and what have you that you just produce this in the read through. Is that true? Is that true?
Well, that was the first time it was heard by anyone, certainly in the read through. Not even the director had heard it. I know he was a bit nervous and said, how about the laugh? Have you got it yet? And I said, I think so. I haven't tried it on anyone yet. But obviously I'd been practicing it in the shower. So, you know, with the shower in front of me, and because normally you're singing, you know, Beatles or Rolling Stones or something when you're doing that. But I was just going,
You should have tried it on that police officer.
Well, I didn't have it at that time. That was just that was when I was going for the interview. So I didn't have the laugh. But I did try it later on. And they did a runner.
I bet they did.
Because actually one time I got done for speeding after I'd come away from the filming of Doctor Who. And it was so late, you know, it was like 11 o'clock when we finished. And I said, look, don't bother trying to clean it all off me. I need a drive because I've got 40 miles to drive, and I'm knackered after having done all that acting in the studio. So I just went without cleaning all my makeup off, and of course, you know, I got chased by the cops because I was speeding, and when they came to the side of the car to say, "Now, do you know why we stopped you?" But before he got to say that, he went, "Oh my God." And then I did a bit of a laugh, and he went, "Oh," and then he just let me off with a caution.
He couldn't believe what he saw.
No.
We've got one of our viewers here, Nabil, saying to you that you've got it down to a T. Well done. And then when you did the laugh there, he says you've still got it.
Sorry? I still got it?
Yeah.
What? I still got what?
The laugh. The laugh, love.
When did I have the laugh look?
We've also got.
I know what you're talking about. When I went on to do Big Finish, is that right?
Yeah.
And that was like 30 years later or something like that. 20, 30 years later. Yeah, I was actually surprised that I was still able to do Sil. The thing is, Sil, he must have inhabited me. He's a parasite. And, once I welcomed him into my body and I fed him and all that, he said, "I'm not leaving." So that's how it happened. I can't get rid of him.
Why would you want to?
Sorry?
Why would you want to?
And why would I want to? Well, I don't really want to. No.
We've got a question for you here from Garvey.
Yeah.
Have you been asked to return at any time for post 2005, even for a different role?
What, to Doctor Who?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. They don't like me.
Join the club.
No, not. In fact, Russell T Davies. I was on the case as soon as it had started in 2005, and said, "Oh, gives the job. I can do that. And I never heard from him. Wrote a letter, and he didn't reply. I think I'm persona non grata with the BBC, actually, because I haven't worked for the BBC since '97.
Wow.
So I think, well, I know that it's possibly political, and that in 2003 I made a big fuss about Tony Blair lying to the nation so that he could justify his war in Iraq. And I was on a BBC local radio program, and with a panel of people, and I was the only one that said this is a lie, and that he's invaded Iraq because he wants to steal the oil, and he's claiming this nonsense about weapons of mass destruction. It's a lie. And I said, and you, BBC, you're nothing better than Joseph Goebbels, Minister of Propaganda on behalf of Tony Blair and the lie. And the show was live when I said this. And the host, the radio host, was so angry with me. She said, I will kick you out the studio for this. I said, go on then, kick me out. But they didn't. But God knows how much was actually heard or said, because of course, they can mute you or whatever. But anyway, I have a feeling that from that day on, I've been banned from the BBC.
But it's interesting, Nabil, though, isn't it? It's interesting, Nabil, though, isn't it? You must see other stars like Miriam Margolyes, Gary Lineker, who do say things and they're not cancelled or they're not taken off, if that's your suspicion. It's interesting who makes the choice and who are the ones who are chosen.
Well, you see, we have a suspicion that the BBC has got a special office which is manned by MI5, and they do the vetting. And I think I've been a suspect person for quite a long time. You know, since in '83, I used my car to block the gates of Greenham Common. So there's so many dodgy things that I've been doing from 1975 that, you know, I would imagine that MI5 have got a really big file on me. So, you know, that's probably why. I can't get away with it and other people can.
That's got all the makings of a TV series in itself, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, but they'll wait until I'm dead. That, you know, you probably find that I'll get shot soon, and then
no, don't say that. Don't say that.
Accident, you know. So, but when that happens, when I die, suddenly we'll be bombarded with extraordinary life story of NABIL Shaban, and I'll be played by an American star, of course.
I was going to ask you, who would you like to play you in the TV film version of it then?
Well, I don't want anyone to play me.
He has to play him.
I will come back as a ghost and haunt him or her. Could be a she.
Well, in this day and age, Nabil, with all the technology, that's probably going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I'll be CGI'd anyway.
You could easily come back because they could have Sil at Davos landing to have a meeting with all the arch capitalists from around the world, a big global thing, you know, and you could be there, you know, negotiating some big deal, and you know, yeah, I can see how you could develop. Because you know, when Elizabeth Sladen and when characters from the old series come back, they always say they like it to be developed. How would you like to be developed as Sil from what you were before? What would he be up to now?
Well, Sil is still being developed. You know, I think there may be a Sil film in the offing. We're just waiting a couple of years. Hopefully, I won't be dead by then. But you know, because Philip Martin, he wrote another script, and that is yet to be produced.
Right.
So who knows? I mean, you know, one good thing about Sil is that he rejuvenates. He gets a new body every time he's filmed. So you know, he had a different body for Mind Warp, and then yet a different body again for Sil and the Devils of Arador, the Devil Seeds of Arador. Ah, there he is. So he just gets better and better. I mean, this is one of these picture of Dorian Gray situation, isn't it? You know, me, NABIL Shaban, the actor, he's getting crappier and crappier and old and degenerated and whatever. But his alter ego is just looking younger and younger and more virile. It's just not bloody fair.
It must be all that Zeiton 7 that he made. Well, actually, he didn't make any money on it, did he?
No, Still never makes any money.
No, he always goes for the wrong deal. He's like a very passionate salesperson, but always gets the wrong deal. His real greed comes in.
The thing is, he's using the Trump excuse.
Yes.
You know, because he's dodging the inland revenue all the time, isn't he? So
the galactic equivalent, yeah.
Yeah, he keeps complaining He never makes any money.
No, bless him.
Still the movie.
Yeah, the petition starts here for that one. Let's head back, gentlemen, to 1985, Vengeance of Varos. I can ask initial reaction from those of us that saw it going out on that first. It was a two-parter in the 45-minute segments, obviously. 19th and the 26th of January. Who wants to start us off with the initial reaction when they watched it? Go on then, Paul.
My initial reaction was that it was nice to see Doctor Who, even after 22 series, actually still doing something refreshing and new. And it really kind of blew my mind. It was a great story and a fantastic performance from Nabil, I have to say, and a great character in Sil. And it was really surprising after all that time they could still provide an unusual, an original and unique story.
Mm-hmm. The big thing about the story, guys, and we've got to get into this, as I said at the top of the show, this is about a horrible planet. Let's face it. This, Varos is an absolutely horrible planet. Even from that opening shot, it looks like a very horrible planet. But to go through this whole thing, it was really warning us about the dangers of reality television at the time, wasn't it? And all that was coming on, because we didn't have reality television viewers in 1985. It was still about 10 years off, I think, before Big Brother started at the turn of the century. So here comes this incredible script from our writer here, and Philip Martin's ability to be able to say this is what could actually happen. Did anyone actually think we could get to where we are now through this story? Because you can see the parallels clearly.
As it was at the time, it seemed to be it was more about video nasties and things that had been sneaking out. There were issues about that. We'd had, people seeing videos they shouldn't and all the rest of it. And so it was an element of just that kind of thing. We had Blockbuster Video and stuff. I can see where this really, it's classic Doctor Who, where it takes a classic story like 1984 and does a Doctor Who on it. 1984 is all over that. You can see how Philip Martin is using that, changing it, adapting it for Doctor Who. And there's so many different messages going on. In fact, in some ways, you think, gosh, there's too many messages. But, about capitalism, colonialism, exploitation, about, the 1984 idea was keep the masses controlled by either pornography, the national lottery, and fear, or a kind of abstract war going on. And in this one, you had the Greek chorus, they were the two who never interacted with the rest of the characters, did they? They were just on their own as these passive viewers, a bit like Winston Smith in 1984, who has a telly screen and just, is not always entertained, because actually the 1984 philosophy was you were given all the news of the war, you were told that productivity was up or down, you were made to work harder, to exercise, you were badly fed, poor nutrition, poor conditions. And a lot of that's in this Philip Martin script, the poor conditions of the populace. And then you get good old Nabil's character who's just coming to absolutely exploit the hell out of them. Like some colonial power or like some big global corporation. Classic there. Sil was probably in Doctor Who one of the first times you saw a monster or a villain who was just a capitalist, an arch capitalist with brakes off and not giving a damn, not a moral insight, and it's just money, money, money. And so it was classic to see how Philip Martin took a classic story, used it and Doctor Who-ified it, and this is what you got. When you asked about first impressions, I obviously did have my diary, and I had it in two parts. The first part I actually thought was genius, cleverly written, fun. One of the best cliffhangers. I think Colin Baker thinks this is his favorite cliffhanger, isn't it? When he's dead for quite a while. It's actually.
Well, can we come to that short? Can we come to that shortly? Let's go through the beginning of this as well, because we're jumping ahead slightly on that one, because it is a two-parter. So we'll come back to that, Brendan. So mark that through. Because what I want to talk about is the setup. This is Colin's third story, and with Nicola, it's her fifth. Is that right? Fifth there. Yeah. So let's talk about what they're like as well. We open up with this rather. Season 22 is full of TARDIS scenes. when you look at it now, it's full of TARDIS scenes. It leads up eventually, of course, to really big padding in time lash in the TARDIS. But this one, these TARDIS scenes in Vengeance of Varos are absolutely vital to what is going on in the story. And what it introduces us to, of course, is this thing called Zyton 7, which, lo and behold, can only be found on one particular planet where all this stuff is going on. So, you know, when did you guys realize that this was going to be the start of the story coming in here, and that was what was going to lead them to Varos and all the characters on Varos, including Syl?
I would say with me, when I first watched it, I didn't quite gel with that scene about the Zyton 7. For me at the time, it was kind of like, well, surely you would just send a distress signal to the Time Lords when you've broken down. But for getting you to that planet, yeah, it's absolutely fine. But yeah, that's kind of how I felt the beginning of that TARDIS scene, really.
Mm-hmm.
It took a long time for the Doctor and Perry to get to Varos in the end. It seemed to happen quite a lot this season.
Yeah, but there's also another element of this as well, where the Doctor is quite morose here, isn't he? You know, this whole season, the Sixth Doctor, still new to us, but he is coming across as sort of, every single episode seems to be his up and coming doom, and he's convinced. He's absolutely convinced, this Doctor, at this point. That what's that about, everybody? Anybody have any idea what that's about? No?
No, not at all.
No, I mean, you had the Tom Baker Doctor, you know, he moaned in Pyramids of Mars, saying, you know, I'm 700 years old, midlife crisis sort of thing. And yeah, there was an element of that. But you see, the Colin Baker's Doctor, he's been violent in Twin Dilemma. He's quite mercurial. And of course, in this one, he then goes morose, defeated, bit selfish, because he said, I'm going to regenerate and regenerate and regenerate here. You'll die quickly, Perry. I think what's clear is, and I'm not talking about the actors, I'm talking about the characters. They haven't gelled yet. Perry hasn't worked out the Doctor and vice versa, because he dismisses her Americanizations. I mean, there's this Pygmalion at the moment. The Doctor
Quite right too, actually.
he always checks her English and pronunciation, which is a funny proprietorial type Doctor. That jars with me. That, but because you know, you want the companion and the Doctor to get on, not pick on each other and slag each other off and strangle each other. So he's still in that mercurial phase, is the Colin Baker Doctor, which is a shame, because later on you see Perry and the Doctor really, really get on, and we're still in that brittle phase.
Yeah.
He's also become a bit like James Bond. He's got all these lovely quips to the villains, like the acid bath scene, and he says, I won't join you. It's like when he kills Shockeye in The Two Doctors, and he says his just desserts. He's got very sort of Sean Connery Bondy in some of these stories.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, can I just say, when you watch Vengeance of Varos, did everyone here notice who killed the most people? It was the Doctor.
Yeah, possibly by accident, though. I don't think he actually understood what was going on.
The baddie's there. There's the baddie.
There he is there.
Yeah, points a massive mega gun at people coming towards him in the very first scenes, doesn't he? Yeah. You know, on Varos,
I just want to give you a bit of trivia as well, actually, Who viewers as well, because this scene here in the TARDIS, where this 1980s chair turns up, right? And now a lot of you outside the UK won't know this, and some of you in the UK won't know this either. But that chair was actually borrowed from the set of Saturday Superstore. There it is, there with Mike Reed on it. Yeah, so I just wanted to point that out, because that's a little bit of trivia for you there. How it managed to get from the Saturday Superstore studio to the Avengers on Varos studio, I have no idea. But I noticed that as a fan of both shows, Nabil. I noticed that immediately on that Saturday night. I know where they've got that from.
Well, Colin Baker is a tea leaf, isn't he? I mean, what do you expect?
The thing about did you think, Nabil, though, that when you were in Vengeance and Mind Warp on the TV, you seem to have more confrontations with Perry than you do the Doctor in a way, don't you? It's you and Perry.
Yeah, well, you know, I think it was a love-hate relationship. Quite frankly, you know, Syl, he wasn't himself anymore. You know, he on the one hand, he probably fancied the hell out of Perry, but on the other hand, he kind of was in denial and knew he couldn't because, you know, their genes wouldn't work. You know, he's a completely different species. So, so as a result, I think he really took it out on her because she was undesirable. You know, she was like the most desirable thing, yet at the same time, he had no hope of getting anywhere near her. It's just, you know, that's how it is with aliens.
It was certainly funny though. I was saying earlier how Sil can be quite humorous, and it comes out in the sequel as well. But it can be because here everybody's going on about how Perry is gorgeous, she's beautiful, she's lovely, and then Sil comes along and goes, bleh! You know, just doesn't like her at all.
Doesn't like her at all. Nah, I know. Well, the thing is, anyway, Trial or Mind Warp had to be toned down. You know, the violence, the vitriol, the pleasure of witnessing pain and torture, which was, you know, supposed to be the case on Varos. Yes. But the Mary Whitehouse Brigade were horrified of all that and complained. Loads of people were supposedly complaining about Sil, and so the producer was asked to tone it down a bit, and Philip Martin was asked to increase the humor and decrease the sadism. So that's how come Mind Warp ended up being like that.
Do you think from Sil's point of view, I mean, he's very at home on Varos. He is coming out as a little bit of a, well, he loves all this stuff that's going on. He keeps saying that, you know, it's very entertaining, all this programming that they're putting out here, and all these people, the Varosians, are forced to watch, and they've really got into this habit of watching. Sil is lapping it up with that laughy. So you make him have that move as well, where he's getting slightly exciting in the most revolting way. When we come to the point that Brenda was saying about the doctor's about to die, and he's just getting all excited. I mean, it's a fantastic performance, but it's absolutely. Ugh. Would you say that, you know, this was inherent in Sil? Is this what his people are like, or is it just Sil?
It's Sil, I would say. No, it's Sil and it's Nabil.
Well, what happens with the story, of course, is that we do get to Varos. The Doctor and Perry arrive on Varos, and then they start immediately to get into the action here. This is where they meet Jason Connery's character. I mean, this is a great cast as well, guys. We've really got to talk about the cast of this show. This is brilliant, and some of these people, of course, are very well known today. Jason Connery went on almost immediately after this, of course, to star in Robin of Sherwood. You know, Sheila Reed's around today. She went on to star in that comedy that lasted forever. You know, she's done loads of other things here.
Yeah.
Great cast, yeah. You've got Stephen Yardley. We've got some returning people coming back to Doctor Who, including him. We've got Martin Jarvis in here. But this is a great cast. This must have been an absolute. I mean, I remember at the time just thinking this feels really, really good. Nabil, I don't know if you want to spill any beans on that at all about if the cast didn't get on at all, but you know, it was a really good, solid cast.
Well, I wouldn't have got auditioned by Ron Jones if it wasn't for Martin Jarvis.
Oh, aye.
Because he was Martin Jarvis had come home. This is what I was told, of course. I asked Martin Jarvis to phone in now and say whether it's true or not. But anyway, he had been cast as the governor for quite a while, and he'd come home one day to his missus, and she says, "So have they found the actor to play Sil yet?" And he says, no, they haven't at all. We've got about a week before rehearsal, and they haven't found the actor. And his wife said, well, what about that guy we saw on television, you know, not that long ago, really, with his theatre company? I mean, he was amazing, wasn't he? Why didn't they get him? And he says, that's a good idea. Yes. So he, the next morning, went off and said to Ron, what about that fella? What's his name? His name's NABIL SHABAN, I think. Why don't you, you know, bring him in and so on? And he said, yeah, but how? Because I didn't have a proper agent at that time. They didn't really know how to get in touch with me. And he says, well, why don't you try the theatre company that he created? I think it was called Grey Eye or something. So they thought, okay. So they rang up Grey Eye and said, could they get in touch with me? And Grey Eye phoned me to say that the BBC had inquired after you, and would you be interested in auditioning to be in Doctor Who? Wow, you know, I'm not going to say no to that, am I? Oh, Doctor Who, my all-time favourite science fiction on telly since 1963. That's when I started to watch Doctor Who, when it started.
Yeah, this is what a lot of people don't realise. You were a fan.
I was.
Yeah.
I was a big fan. In fact, I tried to get on Doctor Who several times before that. You know, in the 70s, when Roger Delgado was the master, he got killed, I think, in a car accident. Yeah. And I immediately wrote to the BBC and says, well, just because he's been killed doesn't mean the character has to die. You know, I could play the character. Well, I mean, I was a nobody. I wasn't even an actor. I was just a student. Well, I wasn't even a student. The place that I was supposedly, you know, studying wasn't a real college. It was a dump, you know, for rejects like me. You know, half the people that went to that place were people who'd been thrown out or expelled or whatever. So so there was me, a nobody, without a job, without qualifications, no training as an actor, you know, right into the BBC and say, hey, I could be the next master. And believe it or not, I got a reply. You see, that's the yeah, that's the difference between today and yesterday.
Yeah.
The BBC would always reply to your letters. They treated you, the public, with more respect. And, you know, so here's this little nobody, cripple in a wheelchair, right into them with a ridiculous idea that he could be, you know, the next villain, the master. And the producer of Doctor Who at that time replied to me personally. And he wasn't laughing when he replied, etc. So, and then, of course, it was no. I expected that, really. But at least he replied and took me semi-seriously. But a few years later, actually, when there's a changeover between Peter Davison, just before Peter Davison appeared, the Radio Times had a little competition where they asked viewers, who will be the next Doctor? And I wrote in. I filled in the form, and it said, name the person you think who should be the next Doctor. And this is before Peter Davison. And I put in my name. And then I put in a little story as to why the Doctor ended up looking like me. And that they could put him in a hover chair, and he could, you know, even though he's in a wheelchair, well, he could have a hover chair, etc. And I said, and this could be a punishment from the Time Lords to, you know, make him a cripple and blah, blah, blah. And so I sent that. And I think I sent it to Don Abram Turner.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah.
And he wrote back. He wrote back. If I'd sent it to RTD, I would never have had a reply. Or if I'd sent it to Stephen Moffat, I wouldn't have had a reply. But in the good old days, when there was real courtesy with, it's not just the BBC, it's everyone.
No, it's across the board. Yeah,
it's across the board. This is the age that we're in, the age of ignorance on the part of executives, etc., etc. But anyway, so he wrote back, and of course he said no, and I wasn't even an actor then either. So you know, there was me, you know, writing, you know, speculatively, hoping, but of course I haven't got a hope in hell. And not only that, you know, that's how much of a fanatic I was about Doctor Who. I'd even written a short story, and I'd also written a script, you know, with a Doctor Who story. That was all in the 70s and so on. So of course, when Grey Eye rings me and say, you know, they want to audition you to be in your all-time favorite children's program,
which you've been trying to get into for over 10 years.
Yeah, yeah. So, and they and the funny thing was, the BBC needed to reassure me that, you know, I wouldn't look horrible, and that I would, you know, because they knew actually, because obviously I made quite a lot of fuss at that time, that I didn't want disabled people to be portrayed in either pathetic ways or as evil, and so on. So obviously the BBC were keen that I took that all on board, and that, you know, the character, it would be a character, it won't be a monster or whatever. So so yeah, I said I would do it, and I was obviously really pleased that it came my way via Martin Jarvis and his wife.
That's a lovely story, actually. It's absolutely brilliant story. It's absolutely, and it's not one I'd actually heard before, Nabil, because, you know, again, bringing you into that, I mean, it shows you how good the bonds were with the cast, because it does come through in the story, doesn't it, guys? I mean, we have to mention that Martin's character himself, I mean, this is a lovely portrayal from Mr. Jarvis here as well. The governor, or the governor, as Sil said. I love the way Sil says that sort of stuff. It's absolutely fantastic. Oh, he doesn't quite get it right. They tell us it's down to his translation. It's beautifully done, Nabil. But, you know, the governor, he's really mixed character, isn't he? You know, you feel for him because he's trapped in this Sil situation. And he's trying to do the best for his people. And he's, I don't know, he's sort of, he really is trapped into this thing about trying to do the right thing. He doesn't follow the Varos way of life, if you like. He's not as bloodthirsty as the rest of them. He's being egged on by this slug to do things the right way. And he also still is actually taking the pee out of him big time because he's not getting the best deal. And then he's at the will of his people. Now, it's very strange here, guys, because again, you know, moving into the present day, this could become a... This could become a real fact at some point in the future.
Please, it'll be fantastic.
This is really awful. This acting here, this whole thing. I mean, Martin Jarvis just nails this, doesn't he? This is actually, I mean, look at the effect on this, you viewers. This is so simple. It's of its day. It's very easy and relatively cheap for them to set up. We know that. But the way Martin plays this, it's very frightening as well. This is a really gruesome planet that we're actually on now. Look what they do. I mean, was I the only one that shocked here, guys?
Well, he was in.
Yeah,
he was in.
it was a shocking scene.
Go on, John.
Yeah, I was just saying, certainly as a kid, it was a shocking scene, and you know, this episode in particular was, you know, well known for its violence, and this was another bit of it, wasn't it? Really, I just wanted to say one thing to Nabil from his story a few minutes ago, where he talks about writing in about playing the master, but several years later. All credit to you, because you made one of the most memorable villains in the show's history. And when you go back and watch them, it's sealed.
It's sealed.
Back to watch Vengeance. So what you did there was fantastic. So thank you.
I was still trying to beat the master, wasn't I? Isn't it? Well, the thing is, you know, what was the motivation for Syl, the character? Well, to me, he was Gollum in Lord of the Rings, and I forgot it. Gollum. He was also the master. You know, finally he was a snake that I handled, a python, and I got the laugh from him. You know, I was listening to the snake, and I was putting his mouth up to my ear, and I was thinking, yeah, I could hear him laughing. And that was a week before I had the first day of rehearsal for the show. So that's where I got the laugh from, really, from a friend's snake that I was handling, because I was looking at him and studying him, and I was thinking, now, what sort of laugh? If I could hear the snake, what laugh would it be making? And I was like studying the flicking of its tongue, and I was like staring at it and studying it and giving him a bit of a stroke. I was going.
How long did it take before you got the feedback from Vengeance on Varos, and maybe a call from J&T or from Martin to say, we've got a kind of sequel and we'd like you back? How long did it take before you realised Syl had really made an impact?
Instant. It was instant, because when we did the last shot, just after It's a Wrap was announced, suddenly over the tannoy into the studio, JNT said, keep the suit. Don't get rid of the suit. And that's how I heard. And Ron came to me and said, I think they want you back. And well, I mean, Chiefy, Forbes Collins, he said, you're going to be back. You'll be back. And Colin Baker said, you're back. You're going to be back. And that was just within, you know, minutes of us having a rat. So, and it's true that, was it about 3 weeks later that I was told by my agent that they were considering another script for me as Syl. And then I went and had lunch with JNT at the BBC, and I think he persuaded me to agree to do this next story, which was Mission to Magnus. Yeah. So I was sent the script for Magnus, and then they sent me the contract, and I signed it immediately. And then then Doctor Who was scrapped. Well, it went on holiday for about 18 months.
It did.
And then by then, Magnus wasn't going to happen, but they decided that they would do Trial of a Time Lord.
Mm. Mm. And the rest is indeed history. We have to say, though, Nabil, that, you know, the impact you had, because you were probably the first for quite a long time, and then the last for quite a long time, of a character in Doctor Who that was emulated by children in playgrounds with that laugh. I remember friends of mine, they had younger kids to what we were, and they were doing it for weeks. I was like, oh, God. So my sister's watching right now. I just want to say sorry to me.
Wow, you know, that was an ambition achieved, because, you know, as a kid in 1963, when the Daleks first appeared, and us kids were going, exterminate, exterminate, you know, all the playgrounds of Britain. And I was one of them. And so years later, when I was developing the character of Syl and the laugh, I was thinking, my ambition is to have all the children of Britain wanting to do Syl's laugh. That's what I want to do. Well, I had two ideas, two plans. One, get the kids back behind the sofas.
Yeah. And
secondly, the kids all imitating Syl. So what you're saying is, you know, warms the cockles of my heart.
It absolutely worked. Good for you, yeah, because it didn't happen again for years. You know, years and years. It took it to get into the modern day era, didn't it? I want to come to the what Brendan was mentioning earlier now. And I just want to say hello to everybody that's in the comments. Thank you for joining us. If you've got any questions for Nabil, please ask us. We'll pop them up there for you. We will be coming to Garbage's point very, very soon, so stay with us. But I want to just go to this bit that Brendan, you were talking about earlier, to the cliffhanger for episode 1. So by the time we're getting to this episode, the first episode, even when you watch it back now, everybody, it does look, you can see how this thing is standing up. If you took this script today and you filmed it today, this would be a real tense thriller with all the stuff they can throw at it today. It really will. And that's the beauty of Martin's writing, isn't it, really? So we're getting to this element here. This is actually, for Doctor Who, this is really scary. This is terrifying. This is your lead character. Now, you know the lead character is going to get out of this, but you're left with that traditional element now of how the hell is he going to get out of this? It's beautifully shot. It's beautifully played. The direction is really tight, in my opinion. You guys, please let me know if you feel differently. But you've also got, you know, the fact that the music here is very sort of, it's very downbeat. It's very funereal in a sense. And then it leaves you with this, which must have scared the hell out of Mary Whitehouse.
Yeah, I was going to say...
Go on, Paul.
I was going to say... Deadly Assassin. I was going to say the drowning scene of the Doctor in Deadly Assassin got so much trouble for the production team. I'm surprised this one didn't get as much as that, because it is very much like that. It's very much that image leaves you till next week. And if you're a little kid, that'd be really, really scary. Your favorite character is dead. That's just really well made, well directed, and just really scary if you're a little kid.
Yeah, and of course you've got the line there, Paul. What was the line?
And cut it now. That's
exactly what happened. I mean,
and because you had those levels, so basically the Doctor Who fan was seeing the government of Varos really direct the death of the Doctor on screens. So there were loads of levels here, and you were very disconnected from where the Doctor was. The Deadly Assassin point Paul's making, I also saw it in a different way linked to Deadly Assassin, which is the Fourth Doctor, when he was in the Matrix, it was parching hot, wasn't it? He was drying up. He was thirsty. And when I was a fan watching that Doctor, it looked like a war of attrition, and he was going to lose because it just looked so hot and dry and arid. And when you see the Colin Baker Doctor, he's going through that same kind of sequence. And it's very discomforting to watch as you see the final breaths of his Doctor. Then you see that heavy directing of it. And no wonder Colin Baker says that's one of his favourite cliffhangers, because most of Trial was a close-up of his face.
Yeah.
But that was a very, very cleverly done cliffhanger, because if the whole story was about video nasties and titillation the population and, winning votes by, giving them sensationalist stuff on TV. And then, as Paul said, we were on that. He died, so to speak. We had the pause, no music, no nothing. We stayed on it. Then we had Sill's laugh. Then we saw his face still on the screen. I counted it was about 10 seconds that Colin Baker's doctor just seemed to be dead. And there was no thought of how we get out of it.
Yeah. As fans, though, we should have all known, of course, that, well, we knew he was going to get out of it. We should have known it would have been the respiratory bypass and all this. But for some reason, you're taken out of your fan mode at that point, because the scene is just so dramatic. It's just so bang. And again, looking at my point of view, when I was watching this recently, people today, we're getting to that point now, really, with reality television, because they're watching all this rubbish. They're watching all this Love Island thing. They're setting people up to get married with people they've never met before. They're calling everybody a celebrity. We're getting there to this point where actually it's only a matter of time before we have public executions on the television as well, like they did with John Dar on this.
Well, this is when you see the fighting, you're going to see an execution. It's very I'm a celebrity, get me out of here, which is if they get the most votes, throw locusts at them and throw rats at them. And there's an element of that. It's a parody and satire and all that, isn't it? Really. It also
no wonder Colin fell at home on that show then, because he'd done it all before in 1985.
Yes, it was also a satire really on referendums and who actually runs the show, because of course. You were talking about Martin Jarvis as governor, and of course, the governor, and the way he was, the way he was weakened by being democratic, so to speak. It's a fascinating concept, because whether you win or lose the vote destroys the politician. And actually, if he was a proper autocrat, he would have probably been stronger, because he wasn't asking for votes all the time. But it shows you that danger of televoting, like on Britain's Got Talent and all those shows where people phone in to keep somebody in or out. And it shows you how sadistic or cruel that can be. It plays on lots of messages.
It really does. I want to address this point that Garbage has given to us. Again, thank you everybody for joining us. Lovely to see you. At this point, I must remember, because Brendan's always telling me, please do like the video, please subscribe to the channel, and please share this wonderful show with our wonderful guest here, our very special guest, Mr. NABIL
Because
Shaban.
if you don't, JT's going to put us in the governor's corner.
And green lights will rain down. Garbage wants us to mention this bit here. Let's mention the acid bath. Yeah, come on, we have to mention this. But NABIL, at this point, when you guys are reading through the script, did any of you think, oh, this is going a little bit too far?
I didn't know. It didn't go far enough.
It's something that could happen today, because here it is now. This is the point here. This is the element here, which what happens. And here we've got these two guards. One falls into the acid bath first, then he pulls into the next one because the doctor's trying to fight him off. This shows the Sixth Doctor as well as his most sort of, he turns very quickly here. He's quite sort of like, oh, hello, how are you doing? And the next thing he's fighting for his laugh. And then, as you mentioned earlier, he's quite James Bond, isn't he, Paul? He's quite James Bond with his flippant remark there. But that was very much of the day, do you not think?
What's interesting about it, when the doctor knocks the guards over, it's very slapsticky in a very dark way, because it's like the plank, you hit the person with the plank, the comedy thing, the clowning, knock them over, but the dark ending is they've been dissolved in acid, and that's really, really dark. But like I said, he does that James Bond, I won't join you, and then goes off, like it's a bit of fun. It's quite scary. But.
I mean, the controversy with this scene, everybody's discussed it, and is it controversial or not? And watching it again this week, thinking, right, this was the controversial moment. This is our big debate moment. And I thought, well, yes, it was in the end slapstick. And I think this was the issue. Eric Sayward, I know he can criticize quite a lot, but he thinks this story was misdirected, because he said it was darker than it was intended to be by Philip Martin. So, and NABIL might know more about that, about whether this genre-wise was intended to be a dark thriller or a satire with a lot of humour. And I think that one acid bath scene gets a bit confused. There's a bit of slapstick. The music is very kind of frivolous. Sorry. Yes, he makes his comment, but to be honest, that comment that Colin Baker's doctor makes is just like frying tonight from Carry On Screaming. You know, it's
one of the classic lines. But again, that shows Colin's wish to make his doctor completely alien and totally different to his immediate predecessor, and that's what works.
Yeah, and you don't want the doctor saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So there was nothing when you guys Nabil were looking at this where it was supposed to be. Was Eric right? Was it supposed to be like that?
I don't know, really. I had no idea what they were hoping for. You know, I'm just an actor. I read my lines, do the moves, play the emotion and all that. I don't have any idea whether it's supposed to be this genre or that genre or whatever. I'm going with the story.
Good for you, yeah.
Just with the story. What is the story telling us? And so on. And I liked everything that it was saying. I like the fact that, you know, we were filming in 84. So it went out in 85, but for me, we were in 1984, which was totally relevant for the thing, because Thatcher, she was 1984 and Reagan was 1984. The world was turning into a very nasty, evil place, and it has continued to be nasty and evil right the way through the so-called 21st century. And it's not surprising that today we are on the cusp of the kind of world that was depicted in Vengeance on Varos. You know, we are going, you know, maybe I expect to see executions televised. I expect people to be voting for it. You know, we pretty well vote for everything now, and so on. So whatever we were presenting on television in 85, we're already there. We're almost there, and it doesn't surprise me at all. Well, number one, I wasn't surprised that there was so much objection, and I think that Varos was probably the reason that Doctor Who was taken off. And first of all, it was taken off for this 18-month holiday as a punishment to the people that made Varos. And I think that it was taken off for quite a long time and not bringing it back until a nice, happy production team could be put together to make sure that good storytelling, which was happening in the 80s, doesn't occur again. So now we have, in my opinion, crap storytelling in Doctor Who. For me, New Who is crap, mostly. And I've probably lost many fans now having said that. I don't give a shit.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion.
You are, yeah.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion.
It's just opinion,
Yeah. I want to talk about one of the things as well that Sil really was fascinated about and enjoyed every single second of, everybody, as part of the reviews, and it was this. So when poor old Perry and her friend, what was the name? Areta, isn't it? Areta.
Yeah.
They get put into this cell experiment where, I mean, we know the story. This all goes on. The makeup on all this sort of stuff was absolutely fantastic. But again, this really brought out the real horror of what was going on Varos, because people are at home watching all this and enjoying it. And so is Sil. He's absolutely loving it. I mean, he says about this one, she's almost attractive. Absolutely vile. But yeah, but brilliantly played and so good. I mean, the whole thing about this story is continually bringing new elements in here to say, look at this part of the zone, look at this part of the planet, look at this, what's going on. And again, it's the forerunner to loads of stuff that's happening today, because they're going from one trial to the other trial to the other trial. It's also been emulated in other Hollywood films. The first one that came to mind for me that I've written down here is The Hunger Games. This is all being repeated. Doctor Who, again, as Nabil says, filmed in 1984, screened in 1985, so ahead of its time. And that comes down to good storytelling, just like you're saying, Nabil.
I think
Philip Martin is a superb story. He was a superb storyteller. And many people that were writing for Doctor Who at that time were great storytellers in the 60s and the 70s and so on. And they were all trying to be ahead of their time. And that's exactly what we're living through now. And you said Hunger Games. I completely agree. But before Hunger Games, we had Arnold Schwarzenegger in, what was it, The Running Man?
Oh, The Running Man, yeah.
The Running Man, yeah. Yeah. So we've had quite a lot of these storylines where everything's a competition, and it's your life that is being used in the competition, and it's all down to whether the public like you or don't like you, you know. If Trump ever had to subject himself to being killed or not killed if the public didn't like him, and that's what we're coming close to, I believe.
Please can you vote for that one?
Well, it is worrying actually when it comes to all of this, isn't it? Because you know, you can see these elements. I've just shown some shots there as well from parts of this whole dome, you know, where they're going around and they're playing all these games. We've got the poison ivy type thing that they come through as well. We've got Gwillem there, the guy with the mask on. He gets a taste of his own medicine, but he, similar to Syl, he loves everything he's come up with. He loves these games, you know, these things that these contestants, as we would call them today, have to get out of. It's absolutely, it really is one. It is worrying. I want to mention this young gentleman as well. This is Owen Teale. Now, Owen Teale has been around for quite a while now, but this is one of his first bits of television. And it's only when I watched it back the other day that I remember, oh, that's where I've been recognizing him from for all these years. Owen Teale. Recently, he also played a major part in Bad Wolves, A Discovery of Witches. That's one of the big dramas that he's been in recently. And I wanted to mention that because, of course, Bad Wolf are now the custodians of Doctor Who, along with BBC Studios. But, I mean, again, a great cast. Go back into this, the fact that, telling you what you're saying here, people are watching this at home. These two play this beautifully. You know, these two, Arak and Etta, representing the public of Varos, which are all doing the same thing. All they do is work and then watch all this stuff on their television. Who else feels like that sometimes?
Well, I think the resolution at the end is classic. You know, when the screen, you know, there's no more executions, there's no more entertainment, and they look at each other, what we're going to do now they've got their freedom. And in a funny way, it's like back to the 70s with a power cut. It's kind of, well, you have to use your imagination. Go outside, go and play. Stop watching the telly. Stop being passive and being entertained like some couch potato. Get out there, be more active. And so it's that scary bit at the end when you have to stop being entertained and given a diet of bile and swearing or whatever. I mean, look at nowadays. I mean, it's so ironic that Mary Whitehouse would challenge Doctor Who. Oh. And we look at now with the amount of swearing, debased discourse on TV. You look at the pornography on TV, really. You get all the programs like Married at First Sight, Naked Attraction. You get all that on TV now allowed. And you look at how Doctor Who was criticised and you think, please.
Yeah.
You know,
I think the point is, though, this was a show with a message. And the people who criticised it, that the BBC themselves didn't pick up on the fact there's a message to the story. They're trying to show what could happen, but they missed the point entirely. Don't you think?
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Plus, I thought Nabil was he was a forerunner as well, Nabil, for Lady Cassandra's Moisturize Me, because there were loads of moments when it was all, you know, squirt me more, moisturize me, and that was you, 1984, and Zoe Wanamaker was in the same boat later on.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Nabil, where you were mentioning earlier about writing in 2003, 2004 to say, right, I can come back type thing. You know, wouldn't it have been brilliant if a Syl type character played by Nabil had been in that episode coming through and the Doctor going, oh, Thoris beaten? You know, that would have been just a nice little nod there. It wouldn't have had to been Syl. It could have been a brand new one. It could have been the son of Syl by this point. Ooh, there's a thought. Not sure how that would happen, Nabil, but there we go.
The tadpole of Syl. You know, Forbes Collins in the dressing room when we were cleaning up, he said, "You're gonna be a big hit." Can you imagine how many tadpoles there are in the country?
He nailed his character as well, didn't he? We just saw the picture of him there, but the chief. Oh.
We're a great double act.
No, definitely a great double act on that one. Because obviously the chief was in the employ of Syl, and it was, they were keeping it all quite hush-hush, weren't they? You know?
Oh, yeah.
But definitely a great double act there. And it comes through the two of you getting on there.
Yeah, well, he actually got me. He gave me some work later.
Oh,
yeah. He put me in some of his Shakespeare plays.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah. I love that when you hear stories like that. Where you say, "Oh, you got on so well, we'll give you a job." That's actually lovely. Okay, right. So what we've got here, before we get to the scores on the TARDIS, gentlemen, final thoughts on the Vengeance on Varos. We'll start with you, Paul. Go on.
Final thoughts on this story. I think it's a great story, and I'm not just saying this because Nabil's here, but Nabil steals the show.
Totally.
Syl's performance is superb. It's great to have a fantastic new villain in the shape of Syl. And there weren't many in the 80s new villains that turned up. There was Amara and Syl, but Syl fantastic. And hats off to Nabil for a fantastic performance.
Yep. Time Muddler?
Yeah, well, as I discovered in '85, I thought it was a story of two halves, really. I thought the part one was off the scale. I really, really was gripped by that. Part two, less so. To me, at the time and still now, there's a static theatrical quality to it. So, but Syl's character was so kind of out there and different. And your characterization carried it. I thought Martin Jarvis played an outstanding role too. And Colin Baker's character was really coming through. So, you know, it was your characters that pulled it. The story had brilliant intent. Really, you know, really ahead of its time. I can't knock that. I just thought in some of the application in the part two, but the characterization saved it, to be honest, for me.
And Little John, what are your final thoughts on this story?
Well, again, I agree with Brendan and Paul. Nabil, as I said earlier, I watch it. He's the main thing in that show. He shines in that show. But I would say, for me, it's a very, very good story. One thing I need to mention, though, is we haven't talked about two old men in nappies. And I have to say, 5 Doctors missed a trick. The time scoop could have been used, and you could have seen them running across the death zone together in their nappies.
You see, the problem is we don't talk about that now because that's become reality now with certain fetishes and stuff going on, isn't there? So we don't talk about that now as well. Before we get to the scores on the TARDIS doors, I have to remind you of this again. That one's for Brendan. And now it is time for the scores on the TARDIS doors. All right, then. So we're going to start with Paul. Out of 10, how many scores on the TARDIS doors are you giving for Vengeance on Varos?
I would give it a an 8 out of 10.
Oh, fantastic. Little John?
I'll go 8 as well, actually.
Brilliant. And Time Muddler Brendan?
For what I said earlier, 6.
Okay. Nabil, would you care to give the story you were in a score on the Todd Store out of 10?
10. Why not?
Well, yeah.
I'll go for 10. I could say I'll give it 5, but also I'll give it 10.
Everybody back
10.
10.
10 from Nabil. That's fantastic. Right. So what I've got as well is that I'm going to give. I love Vengeance on Varos, who viewers. I really enjoy it. I saw the parallels to what was happening in television as it started to happen around about the turn of the century. And so I've seen all this before in Doctor Who. This is weird. I'm going to give it a 10. There we go. I just love it. I find it genuinely scary. Tardy Spider is going to give it 6.5 out of 10. Michelle, hi, lovely to see you, Michelle. She's going to give it 8 out of 10. However, she's also saying that Nabil's performance was 10 out of 10.
Yes.
And that's nice, isn't it, Nabil? That's good to know. Brilliant. That's it. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody, for watching the show. Who's Views Reviews here when we're looking at Vengeance on Varos from 1985. It's got a great score there. Don't forget, please, as I said there before with our new trailer, please do like the video. Please also share the video. Also, subscribe to the channel. Join us on all the lovely things we get as we get closer and closer to the big 6-0. Please keep in tune with us to let us know so what you think about what's going on and everything like this. Wait, we've just had another message here. Who's telling it here? Oh, Jamie saying Nabil deserves the 10 out of 10. You're getting a lot of praise here from the Who viewers. Oh, look at him. He's gone all shine. Nabil, thank you so much for coming onto the show. He's mad as the box. Thank you so much for joining us. Who's Views Reviews. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nabil. Thank you so much for coming on.
And Russell T. Davis, he's available. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. It's been a great show. We've really enjoyed ourselves. Duke, join us next time. Somebody's just asked about what the next review is going to be. Well, the next review is going to be later on in October, and we are going to visit Mars with Sutek. Stay tuned. Do subscribe to the show. And that way you'll know when we're going to go live with that one. We've got a couple of other things coming up before that, but we will be looking at doing what we're going to be calling Horrific Who. The Halloween season is coming up because we are going into October. Yes, we're getting Who into absolutely everything that we possibly can. It's all fun. Thank you all for watching us. Nice to see you all. Sorry about the sound issues we had on that one, but these things happen. It's all live, but we can cope with it. So until we see you again next time on the show, thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Like and subscribe.